once again, welcome everyone. We are going to be going around the circle and passing the proverbial talking stick. Who would like to begin with a 2-minute overview? And basically it's who you are, if you want to say where you are, a high-level overview of your project or initiative or about the work that you're doing in the world, and then any way that you would like to weave networks together. So whether it's a call to action to your website, or whether it is a request to be introduced, or just, hi, I'm me, here's my contact information, and put it in the chat, that's all good. So any volunteers to start, and then we'll pass the talking stick, see if you can pass it to someone else in the room.
Are you going to give us an alert at 2 minutes by ringing a bell or something?
I can do that. Yes, I have. I didn't bring my bell into my office, but I can set my timer on my phone, and we'll start with 2 minutes and go from there. And when it comes to 2 minutes, you don't have to stop cold if you're in the middle of a sentence, but bring it to an end. Thanks, Terry, for that reminder.
Sure.
Laura, can I invite you to go first, since you are one of my oldest and dearest friends, and I know you've got some amazing work you're doing in the world.
So I'm Laura Lee, and my husband, Paul Robert, and I are the directors of the Cuyamonga Institute. And, oh, that's helpful, the clock, yes. And what our work is started by an anthropologist looking at ancient practices and how we can pull some of the ancient wisdom into today. They were survivors, and they held in value a much wider spectrum of human flourishing, its accessibility, how it's built into our DNA, and what our true nature is. So we go exploring the nature of the world and our place in it, looking at our past and what we can pull into our present. This anthropologist found that we share the same physiology, and that it has secrets within, it has powers within, and these can be activated quite readily. Everybody's trying to expand their consciousness today and step into human flourishing and all of its attributes. Our ancient ancestors had methodologies using a shift, a natural and normal shift of our physiology, and it just may not be common today. And they did it through ritual. So there's our ritual center right back there. And we can lead people into a simple ritual. We're simply the guide, so that there's nothing between you and what this evolutionary universe has for us and its message, its engagement. And we find that ritual body postures are part of this. They were memorialized in ancient artwork the world over, and it is a piece of it. Amy Cuddy, in her book Presence, found power postures. These were discovered long ago by many, many cultures. We have, it's activated without entheogens or plant medicine. It's just built in our DNA. And it's stepping into a state of a waking dream, quite an internal, beautiful reverie. We have open sessions weekly, both experiential, and then we have conversations as well to discuss with thought leaders and historians. And so we invite you. I'll put this in the chat room. You can check us out.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Well done. Yes. And I have
power within that can be activated quite readily. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. And that was 2 minutes. So who would like to go next? You can raise your hand or just do this. Okay, I'm going to call on someone if I don't hear. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Riley. Good, Riley. Welcome.
You're on mute.
Yeah, can you unmute your, there you go.
Yeah. So my name is Riley Starks. I live on Lummi Island on the Sailor Sea, the northwest corner of the nation. I'm a commercial fisher and have been for 50 some years. But 5 years ago, I started a nonprofit called the Sailor Center for Sustainable Fishing Methods. And it seeks to educate about the fragility of the Sailor Sea, where we're in a special state right now that can turn the balance pretty easily, and we're trying to make people aware of that fragility. And one way to gauge it is the southern resident orca whales that are the apex predators. here. And so we're concentrating on a Southern Resident Orca program where we're doing portraits of all 74 living Southern Resident Orca whales. And through these portraits, which they're somewhat whimsical because every Southern resident has a name and a number. And so the sort of the power of the name is imbued in the portrait. And through that, we'll reach children and their parents. Once we've reached them, once they get to know that the Southern Resident Orca is the only population of a community of orcas in the world that eats only salmon. They don't eat marine mammals like all other orca populations. And so they will die of hunger if the salmon don't start proliferating and thriving. So our job is to work on all those efforts, the habitat, the salmon, and also the resulting orca population. So that's what I'm doing.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. And then if you want to put your website, everyone who is, once you speak, put your website in the chat, email address, contact information so that we can stay connected and people can find each other. Wonderful. Who would like to go next? Okay. How about you, Sue? Oh, Eston. Okay. Hang on. Sue, would you go after Eston? Please. Thank you. Eston, you and I have been in email communication, so it's great to finally see you face to face in a meeting. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So my name is Eston Mogala. I'm from Malawi. That's a country in Southern Africa. So to the north, we are connected by Tanzania, to the west by Zambia, to the south by Mozambique. And so that's where Malawi is a small country with a population of 20 million. I've been in the NGO sector for more than 20 years, so I'm much passionate about environment and natural resource management. Then some years ago, I was introduced and trained in permaculture. So I've been practicing permaculture for more than 20 years. I've co-founded some few charities. I've helped register more than 10 charities in my country from different countries across the globe. Currently, I'm the country director for an American-based organization. I'm also the national coordinator for the permaculture network in Malawi. I'm also the interim chair for the organic movement in Malawi. I'm also involved at SADC level and African Union level. But with the kinship, something that I think resonates with me and my heart, and is trying to come up with a center, which I'm calling it Center for Permaculture and Regenerative. Okay, so my passion is derived in permaculture, organic, regenerative, biodiversity, and all that. Okay, what I've seen in Africa is that people believe by seeing. So if you have a center, it's a long-term demonstration and a learning center where people from different cultures would come and learn and see that all things works that way, instead of just doing some projects on the ground. But I think if you have a center in the rural areas where people can come and get trained in different aspects of life, I think that's what drives people to act, because they have seen that it's possible. You can do it. You can change your life. You can learn so much. It's not about your educational background, that you don't have a degree, you don't have a certificate. It's about sharing the knowledge and connecting and embracing your inspiration in life.
Wonderful.
So that's me in brief.
Good. And you put your contact information, I see, in the chat. That's fantastic. One of our advisory board members is Hank Patton, and he is doing not exactly the same, but he has a center in southeastern Washington where he works with children and demonstrates how people can work in harmony with the land. So that's very exciting. And I know Hank is not necessarily in a place where he can talk, and I already invited Sue to go next, but Hank, if you want to jump in and say something after Sue. Mike just went on. Go ahead, Hank.
Well, hi, I apologize for not being more obvious, but I had a conflict, and I'm calling you from a remote four-wheel drive location.
I'll put the 2-minute timer on. I don't know if you can see this, but if you want to take your 2-minute share now and tell us about your sanctuary.
Well, I am delighted to be back in touch with you all. As Susan Davis knows well, my particular interest is aligning the well-being of the future with the well-being of the present. And I have worked with a very diverse group of individuals, including the brilliant Susan and Walter and Amory Lovins and others who have long supported the idea that doing well today does not require that we mess everything up in the future. But of course, the future doesn't write checks. And so we're stuck with the business of figuring out a way to serve the future without going out of business, which is difficult if you're competing with a company that doesn't care about the future. So I'm not going to burden you with a long talk about intergenerational markets, because we have one that Lauren faithfully recorded and is posted to this website, but I would enjoy and do continue to keep that work in our daily portfolio here. I quickly would say that take a look, Lauren, you may have seen, I copied to you and others today, Terry, the Paris Global Conference on Finance is going on right now, and they are looking for the kinds of tools that we have discussed in this forum. Basically, how to create models that serve what we are doing today in a way that doesn't injure future generations. Eston, what you're doing obviously is precisely that: how to create local stewardship models that will serve your communities and your children and the health and welfare and of your immediate surroundings in a way that does valuable things for future generations.
Yes.
We're doing that here on the land, and it's surprising as kids struggle to find meaningful work and the self-esteem that comes with that meaningful work. It's amazing how quickly they get excited if you can give meaningful activity to young people in the context of the place where they live and in the context of the soils and the air and the water upon which they depend. They're hungry for work. They're ready to work. And I think it's our job as adults to give them that privilege. And it begins on the land. So thank you, Weston, for doing that.
Thank you.
How did I do with my 2 minutes, Lauren?
Yeah, pretty good for you. Went just a teeny bit over, so that's good. I have the role today of being the timekeeper, so we will open up for more dialogue, and I trust there will be more. Isn't this rich already? Just finding out who's in the room. What are the pieces that people bring to the table? I had a conversation with Kara this morning, got to meet her for the first time thanks to an introduction from Sharon Joyce. There's so much richness in this room. Barbara, I see you have your hand up, although I already said Sue could go next. Sue, are you willing to jump in and do your 2 minutes? Okay, wonderful. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Well, I call my business Angel Coaching, my angel coach, and it's my own unique blend of life and business coaching, energy healing, and delivering guidance from the angels. And my focus, well, my reason for being on the planet at this time is to help co-create what I call new reality business. So we're all so familiar with the old reality, right? Based on manufactured scarcity and fear and lack and business as war, crush the competition. The new reality is based on unconditional love and abundance. It's basically the innate truth of humanity. And so much of the work is peeling away the programming and the conditioning and the belief systems that get in our way of being our authentic, amazing selves and being collaborative and cooperative. And so the future that I see as a visionary and a guide for changemakers and way showers is a future that's very community-based, that's based on being a contribution and coming from joy, coming from love. So I am in the midst right now of writing a book called Being Love at Work. And The next book will be New Reality Business, and the invitation is to fully embody the new reality now. We create it now because there only is now. And so we do it through our lived daily experience. So it's a journey inviting all of the gunk, I call it, to come up, right? Everything that's not a match to it. And we're being asked to flourish now in order to create the possibility for flourishing for all.
Beautiful. With 25 seconds, feel free to put your website in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank Bobby, who is, I think, already traveling to be with her family in England and couldn't be here. But yeah, wonderful. So glad you made it. All right, to keep the flow going, I'm going to call on Barbara, who has her hand up. Barbara, welcome. I've met you in meetings in the past. You're doing some amazing work. You're up in Canada, right?
I am indeed.
Hey, all right.
Yes, I don't see your timer.
I'm going to put it up right now. There you go.
Okay.
Here, I'll start.
So I live in Edmonton, but I'm a former bison rancher. I'm a former, and I've done former lawyer in the US, former mediator in the US and Canada, and I do coaching and educational programs. But my interest and my passion is helping the farmers who are doing their best to become regenerative with that incredibly complex project. This wonderful experience. This is a farmer-led revolution. It's not coming out of the universities. It's coming from farmers who want to get back to what it is that when you work with nature, what can you do on the land? And how do you overcome 50 or 60 years of misinformation starting in the 60s that everybody thinks is the way it's done, but it really isn't. So I'm very involved in that, hands-on. Yesterday, I was on a pasture walk with Greg Judy, who's one of the leading people in the field. He'd come up here from, I think he's in Missouri, for have 9 events just here in Alberta over a couple of weeks that he's come to lead. And he gives you training, and then he takes you out in a pasture, and then you look at the land and you learn what's happening with the farmer. And you look at where the roots are, and you look at how deep the topsoil is, having in mind that before the coming of white people, the prairies were all topsoil, virtually as far down as you could, meters down. It was this gorgeous, wonderful soil that held all the water and allowed the whole microbiome of the soil to interact with the plants for the benefit of everything. Okay, we're up, huh?
One thing about this process is it forces us to condense our messaging and to learn what can we communicate in a short period of time. So let's, Barbara, feel free to put any website information, contact information in the chat, so those people who are in your area or who want to follow up with you can, and then we'll open it up for Q&A when everybody's had a chance to share. Okay.
Can I just say one thing more?
Of course.
The big stumbling block right now is the thinking of farmers who are married to the old system. And that's what I am intending to address. And the Holistic Management Association of Canada is trying to get these farmers to talk with each other. And that's the project that I would like some help with.
Great. And we've got folks in our network that are in the regenerative agriculture, regenerative soil movement to make sure to connect you with. So please be sure to put your contact information in the chat. All right, so I'm getting a couple of notes. Let's see, I got a note from Russell, who is ready to share. And I like this balance of masculine, feminine. And Russell has something to share on the screen. So I believe I've enabled you. There you go. Welcome, Russell. And you may need to unmute yourself because we cannot hear you yet. Oh, this looks like seeds. Still can't hear you, Russell. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry about that. I
There we go.
started sharing and then couldn't find the microphone.
All right.
So, my name is Russell Baldwin. I live in Costa Mesa, California, and my mission is to bring regeneration globally. And I am working right now on a proposal to give to my local retirement system, a system that is founded on the principle of giving people financial security who live in this area. And I propose that we are all stakeholders in these financial systems wherever they are, and that we can weave together all of the efforts of the local municipalities, water districts, fire, other government agencies, sanitation, and convince them that moving to the green upper part is the way to go. And the way we do this is we meet everybody where they are. We show them how we can make a life that's not only more sustainable and regenerative, but also more fun and happy and healthy and thrive and in abundance. And I've already got my proposal into the consultant for my local Orange County employees retirement system, and I'm asking for a large amount of funding. And I've also reached out to the person who authored this page, Mr. Reiki Corton, Reiki, means right.
Oh, right.
And he's gonna help me make the framework for which we can expand globally in a bioregional and or agency manner. So I'm gonna cut it short because I know there'll be a lot of questions later.
Fantastic. I sure appreciate that what you're doing is taking it to your local community. So you're working with these ideas, which are beautifully laid out. So thank you, Russell, and welcome to the Kinship Earth extended network of community. Let me see if I can stop your share. There we go. All right. And I am seeing so many wonderful friends and colleagues in the room that I'm super excited to hear from. So let's see, who would like to go next? Is anybody on a time crunch that needs to jump out, wants to share early? Okay, then I'm going to call on Kara because I had a phone call with her this morning. We met thanks to Sharon Joy. She's doing some amazing work, and yeah, please feel free to share.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lauren. And it's such a pleasure to meet all of you. I am incredibly inspired by all the work that you're doing, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing what everyone else is up to as well. And also thank you, Sharon Joy, so much for all of the connections that you've made. We're really excited. I work with a nonprofit called Resolutionaries, and we're dedicated to healing the political divide. What that means in the United States is that any topic that you want to talk about that needs to be fixed, it really can't be fixed until the two sides of our government are actually speaking to one another and really looking for wise solutions. So to that end, we are in full support of a bill that's in Congress called the Building Civic Bridges Act. It's sponsored by a Democrat out of Washington, Derek Kilmer, and a Republican out of Kentucky named Andy Barr. It is bipartisan, and what's beautiful about this act is it would create an Office of Civic Bridge Building through the AmeriCorps program to fund programs and research and trainings around the idea of how do we have difficult conversations, how do we learn to listen, and how do we speak with civility again? How do we bring democracy back to being a democracy? Which again takes me back to, you want to solve anything, we have to start there. So the stakes for this are high, not only for us as individuals. You can see that that reflected in the Surgeon General's report, which recently came out, talking about how the division in America is affecting people individually at a very disease-like rate. You can also see it in our national politics in terms of there are some people that call the division in America our greatest threat to national security. And then you can also see it in just the efficacy of trying to get anything moving. So we do have a very specific call to action, and the timing is now, considering the presidential election that's coming to pass very soon. the call to action is high level, individual, and all the way through. So please reach out, and together we can make this happen.
Thank you, Kara. And could you put a link in the chat? Kara shared with me something really important. She said a lot of organizations like, well, let's not name them. A lot of organizations will send out opportunities for people to write letters. And if it's a form letter and everybody writes the same letter, the Congress people basically ignore it. It has almost no power. If you can take the time to write an individual letter, it has like 10 times the effort. So could you please put in the chat where we can get that information and take action to support that work?
You're 100% correct. And in fact, it's more than 10 times. It's like 100-fold.
Wow.
One personal letter they consider worthy of 100 people, because if one person took the time to do it, it's reflective of a greater community that means something. When it's a form letter, they just take it to mean, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 letters, it still stands for the one company or one organization that's behind it, as opposed to 1,000 individuals. So I will type in our advocacy tool, and there's a lot of need, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Feel free to speak the website into the chat too, right? Or into the room, so that people who are watching the recording.
Oh, yes, of course. It's our group is Resolutionaries, like be the resolution, be resolutionary. So RESOLUTIONARIES.org. I did it. Resolutionaries.org. And we have an advocacy page on there about the Building Civic Bridges Act.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Sharon Joy, I see you raising your hand. Would you like to go next?
I would, because I want to add on. Thank you, Kara. Because we were playing around with this the other day. I'm Sharon Joy Kleitch. I live in St. Petersburg. And in the spirit of networks, I met Kara because of my Noetics Sciences network of community group leaders from the olden days. And so this went across Turtle Island. What I want to add to that is the power that Kara and Dennis were telling me about the other day, is if one congressman could get 50 letters on the same topic. And number two, they have already scouted out in the country some of the Republicans that are harder to bring into this, who are softening up. So if you could find people in your networks to ask them to send to their network and bring 50 potential letters to one congressman, that's actually what I want to talk about. I'm just thrilled to be here with networks, the kindred spirits. I feel like what you're doing today, Kinship Earth, is showcasing in a short 2 minutes, just a pinpoint on the planet. And that's one of the beautiful things, is linking our planet Earth. And it came to me how beautiful that this is happening, where some of us are being pulled into the light with the solstice of summer, and others are into the winter solstice. And how we're, I almost think of an infinity sign, interconnected. And I wanted to speak to networks. And this came to me in the middle of the night, so I felt like it probably isn't ego. It just, for us, kindred spirits, networking, kindred spirits connecting around Gaia. So I wanted to share with you a couple of network friends. Fritjof Capra, that we've been working with for the last 3.5 years. Here's his idea. Life organizes itself in networks. Life is inherently regenerative. Life is inherently creative. Life is inherently intelligent. And in the 8th lesson that we had with Capra, this last round of 12 sessions, one of the presenters, Castells, said, the paramount form of power is to constitute networks, to connect individuals and institutions to these networks or to exclude them, and to interconnect different networks. So Sharon Joy is drawn to networking networks with networks. And just briefly, right now, I'm networking with a project with the Kresge Foundation and Robert Wood Johnson, who in a project called Fearless is seeking 15 communities, back to the network, maybe you know some, who are two community health officials and two community activists in one place. We're looking for 15 all over the country. Each of these 15 little teams will get $100,000 to work on your initiative. And the activists will each get $9,000. I'll put that link in the chat. The other one I didn't want to pass up is to mention my friend Meg Wheatley. And she talks about our self-organizing world, and she sees it as a power, a presence, a capacity that is available to us. And to me, that's Sharon Joy speaking. We have this opportunity with Kinship Earth because we're here to listen for these little vignettes and, again, self-organize, play like the rest of life. So thank you for having me speak for a long time.
That's okay. Thank you, Sharon Joy. So appreciate you being here. And on that note of networks, with networks, I would like to call on my friend Elliot Baev to go next. He is a massive meta networker and a network leader. So Elliot, please tell us about the amazing work that you're doing and your network.
Thank you, Lauren. Hi, everyone. So working on an impact project called Global Unity, which at a high level asks, imagine humanity, we're really working as one cohesive organism. Where's the platform that facilitates that? Doesn't exist, so we have to build it. The problem is, even if all the platforms and tools and tech were in place, unless there's a mindset shift or a cultural shift, nothing changes. And so Global Unity has two branches: an ecosystem of platforms designed to facilitate global coordination and collaboration, and a movement building strategy designed to get us to the critical mass and cultural shift necessary. And given the limited time we have today, I'll just share a bit about the latter half, that movement building side. If someone comes up to you and says, hey, I've got a plan for uniting humanity, to most people, maybe not this group so much, but to most people, it sounds a little out there. If they had an Elon Musk or an Andrew Yang behind them, we would tend to look at it a little differently. And so rather than a Musk, imagine 1,000 change makers, social entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, artists, activists, indigenous elders all behind it, kind of have the same effect. And so right now we've collected over 450 really amazing people, folks from the UN, World Economic Forum, Deputy Secretary General of Geneva, founder of Ethereum, which is the second biggest cryptocurrency, a lot of folks doing regen ag work and activism work. And the goal is to get to 1,000 before we launch publicly and reveal the bigger vision. What is it we're looking to do? Crowdsource a new country, defined not by geography, but by purpose, care of the earth and everyone everywhere. So there's much more to say, but we're actually running an event, Transformative Impact Summit, in September in New York. We ran it online last year, had nearly 100 change makers present. And I'll pause there since time is winding down, but I'll leave some links in the chat so folks can follow up.
Please do. And I attended part of that event last fall, and it was fantastic. So I'm so glad you're doing it again, Elliot. Thank you so much for being here and weaving your voice into the room. Talk about the network of change makers here. I saw a note that someone was asking about how you raise your hand. So if you go down to your Zoom screen at the bottom, there is a button that says reactions. You can click on that, and at the lower end, it says raise hand. So, and that was it Roshini? Yes. So I see that you would like to go ahead and share. Welcome. I don't know if it's possible to turn your camera on, but thank you for joining us, and go ahead and share.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I love this type of sharing. I'm sorry our camera is not working, but I'm aware of the 2 minutes. And so thank you so much, Kinship Earth. And Lauren, thank you. I got to meet you, I think, at Sagrada a couple years ago. So we are working on the circular economy group here in Vilcabamba, Ecuador, southern Ecuador. And my husband and I, Roshni, we're coordinating the food sovereignty effort. And I think that some of our ideas might be quite relevant for everyone, because how can we claim sovereignty if we can't feed ourselves? And so what we're starting with is a survey, It's 4 pages. In our community, it's bilingual Spanish and English. And that is something that's on SurveyMonkey that we could share with people to adapt to their community. And it's necessary to adapt it, of course, because we don't want your answers responding to our community's needs. And so then after that will help us shape our strategy for addressing the need for food sovereignty. And then we're using a strategy of, we're going to piggyback onto freedom cells and the idea of getting very local, get with a group of 6 to 8 people that hopefully are within walking distance in case, who knows how many of our systems we rely upon are going to go down. And then to start strategize within your own very small community, starting with a skill sharing list and then a tool sharing list, and do regular brainstorming sessions. And everybody following the one of my favorite quotes from Bill Mollison is, the main thing we need to do is shift from consumer consciousness to cultivation consciousness. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I know there's an event happening in Vilcabamba this week that Walter and Susan are hosting at Finca Sagrada. So I'm so grateful that you are weaving that energy in on behalf of them. And yes, feel free to put your survey in the chat. And thank you for the important work that you're doing. All right, who is feeling called to share next? Terry. Oh, and yeah, Terry's book, by the way, Common Good Nation, speaks a little bit to what Elliot was talking about with a nation by agreement. So yeah, Terry.
I'll let you know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for $60 million, but I'd prefer to get $180 million. And I don't need a donation. What I need is the investment to be switched to the common good investment movement. The thing that I'm most interested to talk to you about is that I'm one of the people who, with Susan Davis, was one of the pioneers of social responsible investment, which is now one of the fastest growing sections of the investment community, with $88 trillion invested in it around the world. Well, it only focused on caring more about employees, the community, and the environment. It ignored what the highest priority is, which is maximizing financial return to the shareholders. The priority determines everything else. Everything else yields to and accommodates the priority. So the common good investment movement will focus on investing in companies that are choosing to give priority to the common good. And I already have a friend who's done it for 10 years and has outperformed the market. So we're going to look for foundations to change their investments from one place to another place where they'll get a better financial return and be part of launching common good investing in 3 social responsible mutual funds that I'm working with in Boston. I was one of the founders of the Calvert Social Responsible Mutual Fund, which was the first one in 1982. And I'm now working with 3 that are doing this. So if any one of you want to move your investments from one place to another place that would get a better financial return and help launch the common good investment movement, and you just happen to have 60 or $180 million or someplace, like that, to help us do that, yeah, we'd love to have your help. That's the conference. And the other thing that I'm excited about is becoming the co-chair this last month of Kinship Earth, and what Susan Davis is doing, and Lauren and Steve and everybody. And so I'm glad everybody's here doing everything that you're doing. Goody, goody gumdrops. All right, I'll yield.
Yay, thank you, Terry. And with that lead in, I might want to kind of toss it over to George. When I was introducing the Kinship Earth board members that were in the room, George hadn't yet joined us. George Orbelian is also on our board of directors and an amazing meta networker. And added something to the chat about the investing world and investing in making humans net positive to nature. So George, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. I'm on the board of the Buckminster Fuller Institute. And so I work with Tom Chi. He's the head of the board, and it's myself and Barbara Mers, who was actually featured on one of our past speaking engagements recently. At any rate, I work with all of you to realize Bucky's quote, which is make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. And there's a lot of solutions out there, and it's just a matter of putting them into use. So thanks for all you do, and look forward to working together. Aloha.
Aloha.
Wow, good example of being very brief. Okay, thank you, George. Can I call on Cindy Reinhardt? Can you?
I think you did.
Yes, is that okay? You ready to share now?
I was actually about to raise my hand.
Perfect.
So I want to just do a very quick shout out to Sharon Joy, who I had the pleasure of hosting in my home for several hours in Crestone, Colorado, several years ago. So it's great to see you, Sharon. What a networker. I actually sit at the table of unknowing what's next for me, with a passion for regenerative agriculture and food sovereignty here in my community and the vast San Luis Valley of Southern Colorado. So I'm fascinated by all that's going on, some of which I was aware of, some of which I wasn't. And I'm involved with the slow money movement in our group here in our community. So thanks for everyone's shares, and I will yield the floor back. Thank you, Lauren.
All right. Well, can you tell us also about your blog, which is the name is escaping me.
The Pivot.
The Pivot.
Yeah. I can put a quick link in the chat, and I am going to have to leave a little early for another call. But yes, I write a weekly blog that I hope is inspiring, introspective, challenging for some people, planting seeds of a new world. And I will I'll put a link in the chat. Thanks for that shout, Lauren.
Wonderful, wonderful. Love to see the networks coming together. All right, I'm going to see who wants to raise their hand next. Otherwise, I'm going to call on somebody. We've got a handful of folks that have not yet shared. All right, I'm going to toss it to, oh, perfect. I was going to toss it to you, Carmen. Great.
Thank you very much, Kinship Earth and Lauren and all the leaders here and all of you for participating. Wonderful. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about the economic paradigm because that's what I'm involved in. I'm involved in shifting the economic paradigm from the bottom up through a new project. It's a startup, which is actually in seed launch mode right now. It's called Transcendent Financial Planning. I share the link with you. And because we are shifting the economic paradigm by shifting the financial planning paradigm, the way people at the personal level manage their money, plan out their money, consume their money, gift their money, and invest their money. Okay. I am very interested in following up with various of you, including Terry, of course, and Sue. Because Sue, Transcendent Financial Planning is a new reality business. It's a business that is implementing a business model. It's called the ethical spiritual business model. It is really a test of that model. We're testing the model. It's a model that we created, and we're testing it with Transcendent Financial Planning. It's also Transcendent Financial Planning is a case study of the Earth Constitution for the new planetary civilization. So we're super excited. It also, we're applying the 8 principles of regenerative economics. And it just goes on and on. So I'm running out of time, but you've got the link, Transcendent Financial Planning, and you've got my link to LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile. I look forward to hearing from all of you, and I will be contacting various of you here today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carmen. Yes, and I know Carmen's been working with Dr. Annelos Smitsman, who is also on our advisory board and is working closely with her and those principles. And in the Kinship Earth newsletter, you saw that Annelos and a group of colleagues at World Unity Week will be presenting tomorrow in honor of the solstice. So wonderful. All right. So we have not yet heard from Pete and Jeanette, Daniel, Kathy, and Amanda. So who would like to jump in next? All right, Pete, come on. We've been to Ecuador and Peru with Pete and Jeanette, visiting Finca Sagrada and other places. So welcome.
Yeah, so my share would be kind of associated with that. For the last few months, I've been bathed in really high frequency light, and it's really incredible. I had a vision last Saturday at a solstice festival. I was listening to an indigenous band, and I was actually doing some energy healing on a friend who was having problems with her hip. And so my eyes were closed as I was listening to this music, and the vision I saw was an eagle and condor coming together and flying in a tight circle. And it was an overcast day, and what they did was they opened up a portal that allowed light in, and they gradually expanded this circle so that eventually the entire Earth was bathed in this high frequency light. So I invite everyone right now to take a break from the movement of mind and just embrace stillness for a moment and allow this high frequency light to come in through your crown, fill your bodies, saturating every cell in the body with this high frequency light, and allowing yourself to become luminous and radiant with this light that's omnipresent right now on Earth. So just feel yourselves being filled with light and feel this expansiveness, allowing the radiance that's coming in from above to fill you and allow you to become this radiant light. Let's just fully integrate this radiant light into our being and ground it into the heart of Mother Earth. Allow this radiant light to go from the heart of Mother Earth out through the mantle, to the surface of the earth. Allow this radiant light to infuse all of creation, all of the planet, from within the heart of Mother Nature and from Father Sky, illuminating every cell of this planet, every molecule of this fused with radiant light.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah. Cool.
That was the perfect little segue from all the intellectual into the heart. I hope everyone can feel it. We are, it's my unfortunate role to be the police of the time. So I'm going to pass it to Jeanette. Are you willing to do a quick check-in with us and share about the work that you're doing in the world?
No, well, I feel pretty inadequate listening to everyone. I don't have I'm at a point in my life where I'm kind of doing having some opportunity to be available. And so much of what everybody talks about is, touching me. But what really touched me and something that I've been thinking about for a long time was Laura Lee and how our ancestor knowledge is being lost. And it's always, breaks my heart when I think about it. And I'm so excited to check with what she's doing more, that we can somehow bring that knowledge back into the present. So I'll make that brief, and thank you very much, everybody, for all that you're doing. Oh, it's exciting.
Thanks for being with us, Jeanette. And yeah, a note on Laura Lee's work. Saturday mornings, they have free events, and Sunday mornings. And so for those of you who came in late, I don't know if you'd be willing, Laura Lee, to put your link back in the chat so that
Oh, indeed. Of course.
And then there was a question, how do we save the chat? So there are 3 little dots down at the bottom of the chat, and you click on that, it says more, and you can copy it from there and then save it to somewhere on your computer. So good question. All right, Kathy, I see you have turned your camera on. Are you ready to join the share?
I didn't know we were supposed to share at this meeting. I just came to listen.
Oh.
I live on Quadra Island, which is halfway up the coast of Vancouver Island on the inside, the Pacific Northwest. And I guess ours is more practical. We're trying to convert a 158-acre parcel that was an attempt to create a 51-house subdivision that we defeated last June into a community land trust for forest regeneration, experimentation and education, and regenerative agriculture farming, education and experimentation. And we have 10,000 feet of shoreline, and we just got approved from Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada and our local Hakai Marine Research Organization, a community-led eelgrass bed restoration pilot project. So we're starting our first regenerative exercises. We still have to get this big spaceship off the ground of buying this land from this developer. So that's our big challenge right now. But we realize that in restructuring a new non-exploitive capitalist model, we have to start developing community resilience and community strength together. And based as a nature preserving, this will be a centerpiece of a nature preserving community model in our island.
Wonderful. Well, please be sure to put your contact information in the chat, any websites that you may have, so that we can connect those folks. We've got a lot of people in our network that are working on land trusts and regenerative communities. So great to connect you. All right. And let's see. Oh, Riley has his hand up. So go ahead and jump in. Quick in and out, Riley. And then I want to make sure Jim and Daniel have a chance to share.
Yes, just very quickly. I forgot to mention that our fishery, the reef net fishing, is it's the oldest salmon fishery in the world. It's the most sustainable salmon fishery, and it was invented by our Coast Salish people 1,800 years ago, and it's diminished down with hundreds and hundreds of gear locations, and now it's down to 12. But we're working on expanding that with our local Lummi nation. So the oldest salmon fishery in the world turns out to be the most sustainable, and it's what the future holds for the Salish Sea. So thank you.
There's the theme again of the ancestral wisdom and the Pacific Northwest. Love it. All right. So Jim and Daniel do not have your camera on. Would either of you, oh, there's Daniel. So Daniel, welcome. Good to see you again.
Hi, nice to be here. Nice to listen to all you folks. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm a sound designer in the music industry, but my real passion is wildlife conservation. I have been since I'm young. I've been involved in different organizations. Fortunately, it's been an uphill battle that is still continuing. We're making some progress, but it's tough. I know a lot of people have talked about getting government involved, and that we have a hard time with the government as far as wildlife conservation. But my particular passion is, especially in California, the grizzly bear and the gray wolf, the reintroduction here. And you know, it's ironic that our state flag is the grizzly, and it's been extinct since the turn of the century, 1920s. And there are no grizzlies to date in California, which is one of the battles that I'm working with certain organizations to get back. But my first priority is gray wolves, and they have been reintroduced by themselves with no help from the government of California, but they have come from adjacent states, and they are indigenous to California, and they were chased out. And we have a few families, about 25 wolves in Northern California. Now they're protected, they're an endangered species, and so we're trying to work with farmers. I've heard people said that they're working with farmers for regenerative agriculture. We're trying to work with farmers because wolves have been demonized, and the very reason why they were extinct. And it's a fallacy, because when you reintroduce an apex predator like the wolves, the whole ecology of that system comes back and flourishes very rapidly. So that's why we're trying to educate mostly the farmers that have opposed the reintroduction of wolves, not only in California, but in Pacific Northwest. So that's what I'm working on. That's my passion. And I would be glad if anyone has any input on that area, if they have any advice or any expertise in helping to do that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for being part of our community, Daniel. And are you able to put notes in the chat? Please feel free to put website, contact information, so that we can circle back with you and make introductions as they come along. Also, I'm curious if you're using your music at all to help tell that story.
I've worked on documentaries with music. I'm a sound designer, so I've worked with musicians to do documentaries. Yes, that's my small contribution with my vocation. Thanks.
Important piece of the puzzle, yes. All right, and I see that Jim has unmiked himself. So welcome, Jim. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for all your work. I'm in one of those adjacent states, Oregon, and we have wolves, and they keep venturing across the border into your state. I'm very close to your border myself, but I'm of advanced age now, and 20-some years ago, I had visions of intentional community, and with a girlfriend, searched for 3 or 4 years on evenings and weekends to find the perfect property. And the one imperfection in the property we found was that it was more than 20 minutes from Ashland, Oregon, the home of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and Southern Oregon University and the center of the universe. But it's an hour away from Ashland, but it's now for sale for anybody who carries the vision that she and I had 20-some years ago for a collaborative community looking for a well-watered piece of land at around 2,000 feet elevation in the foothills of the Cascades. I've entered my statement on the chat, and please get in touch if you might want to take this piece of property and preserve it for the future.
Wonderful, Jim. And this is the right community to bring a message like that to. I know so many people that are wanting to look for spaces like that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I see Cindy. Now, at first I thought it was Cindy Reinhardt, but I see that it might be a different Cindy. And it looked like you were in and out of a vehicle. So Cindy, would you like to share? It's not the same Cindy. So please feel free to unmute yourself if you can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello, hello. Hello from New Zealand.
Oh, it's that Cindy.
Yeah, it's that Cindy. I just popped in because I am on my way to work. And I wanted to wish everyone here the most incredible solstice time. At being in the southern hemisphere, it is our darkness, and the time for reflection, which we definitely do. It's 8:13, and really the sun isn't even up yet. So we're definitely living in that space, which is such a regenerative space that I just wanted to check in and give my hellos and let you know that we're still here. And give you just a quick idea. I work in produce, so I basically move produce around the world to keep people fed during your off season, the Northern Hemisphere off season. Some of you may or may not know that we got smashed with a really, really deadly hurricane 4 months ago. We're in a recovery space still. Although there was not a tremendous loss of life, there was, depending on how you look at it, a loss of productive land and dwellings. Personally, I look at that and I say, okay, here's our opportunity. We can redevelop this all in a more sustainable way. So I just, like I said, wanted to say hello. And please, anybody, if you're interested in New Zealand or you want to know what's going on here, reach out anytime.
Wonderful. And were you able to put your information in the chat, or do you want to just speak your email address and we can pop that in there? Or not, it's fine. Oh, and she froze. Okay. Oh.
Certainly, but I'm driving, so look, I'll pop it in when I'm stationary.
Perfect. All right. I believe we have woven the circle all the way around. We have about 15 minutes left. This would be a great opportunity for reflection. If there's something, some introductions that want to be made, something, or solstice blessings, whatever you would like to share.
I just want to thank you, Lauren, for pulling this community together and for all the work that you do, and you do it with such panache. So that's, yeah, thank you.
Takes one to know one. You've got Laura Lee is another. So many of us here are network leaders or space holders for larger groups of people. So this work is important in helping weave those threads together.
Networks upon networks.
Yes, as Sharon Joy was saying. Now, Sharon Joy and her network have been working with Fritjof Capra on the concept of networks becoming conscious. Living networks, which is part of what we are too. And that whole sense of emergence that we can try to plan, and yet we have to allow for the emergent wisdom.
I'd like to ask Russell Baldwin, was it Russell Baldwin? Who's doing one community? Is that person gone now? Okay. Well, let me just ask Russell, because I had a question for you too, Russell. What do you see as the trim tab that will take us to this next economy that you're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you mean by trim tab.
Well, trim tab is what is the key thing?
A Bucky Fuller term.
The leverage point that would spark the economy to start to move in the direction you're talking about.
So the way I envision it happening is first we have to create the container by which everybody can access a connection with everybody else. I see, a Web3 blockchain, cryptocurrency, regenerative cryptocurrency like Seeds network that is pulled together by a very easy to use interface, because if we don't make it simple, and we don't make it fun, then people are not going to be involved. And then we meet them where they are, right? We give everybody what the message of hope and abundance where they're at. And so it's going to have to be, and then also doing it all at once, right? Like making the container first and then putting it out to everybody. So everybody has an opportunity to jump in immediately and figure out how they can contribute.
Let me just say something to you about that. I believe that every empire implodes from within. And I think the American empire is imploding from within right now. And what I think is going to be the next stage of maturity for democracy is the emergence of the nations defined by agreement rather than geography. So groups of people coming together who share a worldview. And because we can now communicate with each other all over the globe, it could be global. And we could end up deciding what kind of society we want and how everybody accept full responsibility for themselves, and then have everybody providing resources for each other to end up being able to have their lives be full. It's not in competition with the geographic nations. It builds on top of them. And whatever the geographic nations are doing is great. We'll all participate in our geographic nations, but we'll give priority to our agreement nations. The last thing I'll just tell you is, I don't know if you know that the Pew Research Center every 4 years does research on people's spiritual affiliation or religious affiliation. In 1956, less than 2% of the people did not have an affiliation with a religion. 4 years ago, it was 12% were nuns, no connection or anything. In the last 4 years, it doubled. It's now 26% that are not connected to a religion. And so people are shedding all things that are paternalistic, which is usually what most religions tend to be. And people are wanting to come together in a way that is egalitarian and honors each person's ability. So what we want to do is have agreement nations where the greatest power stays with the individual. But we also expect the individual to mature, to grow, to be a mature human being who gives priority to the common good as their natural instinct. But that's a skill that we need to teach people. So those are the things I think are going to be going on. I think that Bernie Sanders will create a democratic socialist agreement nation. You know, what do you call that right-wing party? I forget what it is. Oprah Winfrey will create hers. Everybody will create them. And now there'll be a new vitality of people doing better agreement nations, and people can leave without moving your residence. You can move from one to the other. So I'm just seeing if that stimulates other thoughts in other people.
Yeah, I would like to jump in here because this is at the core of what I've been promoting for a while. And I really love Kara's presentation of what she's doing. I think it's essential for humans to come together. And so the common ground that we have is that all human beings desire love and connection, and all human beings have something they can do to make the world a better place. This is where our common humanity lies. Doesn't matter what people think. It's whatever their contribution can be to making the world a better place is probably where their highest purpose in life resides. And so if we can come together over whatever it is people can do to make the world a better place, we can become a human tribe rather than all these individual things, and build this better world with this critical mass that'll just naturally happen, because that's how inclusiveness can happen, is through that you know, you're doing something, we love you because you're picking up garbage, whatever. It can be the most insignificant thing, but those people can be loved and part of a connected community because of their contribution. And so this is, I think, essential for humanity to start to embrace our common humanity rather than these petty divisions that by design are meant to keep us apart.
I think going from me to we is going to be the answer to our survival. And I think it's what our evolution has in store for us. And I do appreciate the story that evolution is actually the 14.7 billion years of the existence of our cosmos, and that all of life is one creative womb. And we're just a drop in this vast ocean to articulate that, to demonstrate that, to activate that. So I agree with every sentiment here. It's been good to join this group. Yeah.
Russell, is that a new hand raise? Feel free to unmute. This is open dialogue now for the next little while.
Yeah, I just want to riff on what Terry said and Pete. So one of the challenges that we face, and I really believe in a spiritual solution here, is that once we've raised our awareness and our vibration, or whatever you want to call it, then it'll become obvious for every individual the direction in which we need to go. And so we as the way shorters just have to be ready to, help them, assist them into the new world that we're building. And yes, the old world is falling apart, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. In fact, it needs to fall apart for us to build the new one.
It's due. Yeah.
Yeah. And it feels like there are a lot of people that are building this, the safety net or the infrastructure from below that's going to catch when the other system falls apart. And we're all part of that group. And, for each one of us, it is a daunting task to think about trying to carry that weight. But as we weave our networks together and share in the load, it becomes much easier. And everybody here is following their own heart's calling. And that's one of the things that I'm trusting, is that that every person who was called here is here for a reason, and you will be drawn to those right relationships where you can continue to mute Roshini, where you can continue to follow up on those contacts that spoke to your heart. So I will be copying the chat, and if you put your email address in here, I will send it specifically to those people in the room. Those of you who are watching, please make sure that you sign up for our Kinship Earth email list so that you can get on the invitation list for upcoming events. I'm going to do a quick little screen share here. It should be right here. There we go. An opportunity to join our online community. And that is by going to kinshipearth.org/join. When you type in your email address into the form at the bottom of the page, it will take you to the Open Impact platform, where you'll be invited to either sign in or sign up. If you do not yet have an account, you can create a free account. So click on sign up. You can create your own profile. You can see many people in this room have one. And you'll not only be connected to the Kinship Earth community, but because our strategy is generosity, because we know that we are just one network of many networks that are helping to shift the transition, helping to facilitate the transition to this new consciousness, you'll be able to connect with the vast global interface. If you click up here on the marketplace, it'll take you to lots of organizations, people, projects that you can follow your heart and be part of. So with that, closing thoughts, comments, feedback. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's been just an honor. Yes, Daniel.
Yeah, I just wanted on the spiritual, since people mentioned the spiritual aspect of all this. It's always good to be reminded, and I'm not the first one to say this. The Buddhists have said this, many spiritual teachings say this, but the root of our problem right now, and it always has been, but it's at a peak right now, is separation, the illusion of separation, that we think we're separate from everything, whether it's political, whether it's separate from nature, from animals, from trees, from us, from each other. That is the root, and we keep putting band-aids on it. But until humanity wakes up to that illusion that we are not separate, that we are all part, and we all have our small part or big part in this whole evolutionary process, we will not get out. And it's been spoken that the system needs to break down, possibly, to realize this, and then be built on that very knowledge that we are not separate from each other. And if we can reach that, I think that is the next evolutionary step in humanity. And as each other, what we can do on an individual basis is to always remind people and to be attentive to others that they matter, that they are not separate from us, that we see them, that they're seen. And this is what ails us right now, is people feel they're not being seen, they're not validated. With all the social media we have, it's increasing even more of a separation. And so please go out there. You beautiful lights, all of you, and just make people feel that they are being seen and that they're not separate from us. So that's
all the trim tabs hanging together. We can move the ship.
There you go. Daniel, one of the images that I've been using lately is that I am a limb of the one indivisible universe. The one thing I've learned is that we all know about oneness. We all use oneness when we're thinking about inside our skin. You know, if I get a cut on my finger, it naturally and effortlessly heals. You know, my arm has never moved to California. My arm has always been cooperating with the other different parts within my body and has been cooperating for the health and maturity of my body, which is the fundamental process in the universe. So we already know how to do oneness. We do it when we're talking about the inside of our skin. So I now think of myself as a limb of the one body doing the same thing my body's already doing, which is cooperating with now my big body rather than only my small body. Does that work for you, Daniel?
Yeah, and you can use that example as a universal fact that I see an extension of all of you in me. Everything's an extension. I'm just part of it. Animals, nature, plants, trees. If you see that as an extension of yourself, you're not separate anymore. You're part of it. And so it helps me.
So Daniel, you, the gray wolves and the grizzlies, we are all limbs of the one body, right?
We are, and way higher universally than that. Yes.
And I see Sharon Joy and Kara also have their hands up, so please feel free to chime in.
Yes, I will. I was mentioning my IONS friends earlier, and we were talking about when Edgar Mitchell went to the moon, and actually coming back was when he had the aha moment of we are oneness. And what we were talking about is we've lost our sense of awe. And there just happens to be a link in the chat that I put in there about awe. So I invite us. Then I want to share another networking idea that popped into my head. What if we invited our symphony orchestras, like all over Florida, on one weekend to play Gustav Holst's The Planet Symphony? And I reached out to my local symphony, the Florida Orchestra. It's already on the schedule. It's opening up at the autumnal equinox, the planets. So that's a great way for people to feel that same connection with the rest of the universe. So those are my top of line thoughts. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. And Kara?
One just real quick thought, and then I got to jump to gather the children. The work you were talking about, Daniel, the connectedness. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Suzanne Simard, who's the scientist that
trees.
Trees. Her work is so gorgeous. But one of the things that really stood out to me is when she was looking at the ways in which trees communicate with each other through the root system with the mycelium network, which Sharon Joy, you and I were speaking about as well the other day. That connection, if you look at it, bears a striking resemblance to the ways in which our synapses and neurons function in our brain. They look amazingly similar. But what I was really struck by is when she proved the chemicals that enabled trees to communicate with one another and enabled the trees to communicate with the mycelium network. It's the same chemical composition that allows our brain to communicate as well, which I was just, so I'm sure that work is very familiar to many of you, but it seemed very closely tied to what you were saying. So thank you for bringing that up, Dan.
I suggest you connect it with Sharon Joy's Awe channel.
And another shout out to my dear friend Laura Lee, who has interviewed just about everyone who is anyone in the consciousness movement for the past 30 years. And she and her husband Paul have a fabulous library of interviews with academics and conscious leaders on their channel at the Cuyamonga Institute. So when you mentioned trees, I think you've had somebody on your show not all that long ago about that. So really great resource.
Oh, I'm going to be tapping all of you too, as well, here. Yeah, awesome. You've got wonderful stories to share.
Awesome. So. All right, Carmen, last words. We're going to be wrapping pretty soon.
Okay, so Sue left us, but she talked about new reality business. And I mentioned ethical spiritual entrepreneurship, the ethical spiritual business model. And I just wanted to say that we've got, you know, social entrepreneurship, we've got sustainable entrepreneurship, we've got regenerative entrepreneurship, and now we've got ethical spiritual entrepreneurship, which transcends all of that. All of them includes and transcends. And the distinction is that it dismantles the myth of separation. That is the core, the root of our business model. More to come on that. And thank you so much, Lauren.
Oh, thank you for doing the work you do. Thank you, every single one of you, for being who you are, doing the work you do, and for showing up with your full heart and soul. I look forward to continuing to stay in touch. Again, if you want to save the chat, the little 3 dots there, and then if your email is in there, I will send everyone a copy, and this video will be posted on our website soon. So stay in touch. All right. You can
Thank you, Lauren.
Bye. Happy solstice.
Thank you, Lauren. Happy solstice, team.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for Kinship Earth Connections. We encourage you to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. To receive invitations to our upcoming events and connect with our community of kindred spirits, please visit us at kinshipearth.org. Thank you.